Astronaut Armstrong has a sequence camera on his chest now. He was brought down to him on the lunar equipment conveyor. This is something like a clothesline, just a normal clothesline that you use with a pulley system, and it was fed down to him.
I'll step out and take some of my first pictures here.
He has it on his chest. He'll walk out now and take his first pictures.
Roger, Neil, we're reading you loud and clear. Let's see, getting some pictures and the contingency sample.
Getting some pictures and the contingency sample.
.5 minutes of PLSS time expended now.
Stand in the moon simulator during their training period.
Looking at Armstrong moving around there on the lunar surface, he gives the picture of an Arctic explorer dressed in heavy clothing to protect him from the freezing cold with a backpack, gingerly moving about now in the vicinity of the LEM ladder. Buzz Aldrin still in the LEM. He will not be moving out for a few minutes yet.
Neil, this is Houston. Did you copy about the contingency sample? Over.
All right, you're going to get to that just as soon as I finish these picture series.
What he has been doing is he's turning around a full 360 degrees, taking a snapshot with his camera from all angles from where he's standing.
In his description of the moon's surface, Armstrong said it was firm but powdery. He could kick it up with the toe of his boot. It would adhere to the toe of his boot like fine charcoal dust. He can see his own footprints and the boot tread on the surface of the moon.
He is now opening up his suit pocket on his left leg. This is what he'll put the contingency sample into. About 2 pounds of lunar material. He has more or less a stick with a little bag on it.
Okay, going to get the contingency sample there. Right. Okay, that's good.
This is number one on the list of scientific priorities, getting that first quick sampling of lunar soil. In event the mission has to be cut short, the men brought back early.
The curvature of the lunar horizon is clearly visible about 1.5 miles to the west of Eagle.
Okay, the contingency sample is down and it's up sample. Like it's a little difficult to dig through the initial crust. Very interesting. It's a very soft surface, but here and there where I plug with the contingency sample collector, I run into very hard surface, but it appears to be very cohesive material of the same sort. I'll try to get a rock in here. Just a couple. Oh, that looks beautiful from here, Neil. It has a stark beauty all its own. It's like much of the high desert of the United States. It's different, but it's very pretty out here. Be advised that a lot of the rock samples out here, the hard rock samples, have what appear to be vesicles in the surface. Also, I'm looking at one now that appears to have some sort of phenocryst.
Houston, roger out.
Okay, the handle is off the... it pushes in about, 6-8 inches into the surface. Like it's pretty easy to... It is. It's, I'm sure I could push it in farther, but it's hard for me to bend down farther than that. Didn't know you could throw so far. You can really throw things a long way up here.
Think how far you could drive a golf ball.
Yes.
Think how far you could slice one.
Right off the horizon.
My pocket open, Buzz? Yes, it is. It's not up against your suit, though. Hit it back once more. More toward the inside. Okay, that's good. That in the pocket? Yeah, push down. Got it? No, it's not all the way in. Push it. There you go. Engine's example is in the pocket. My oxygen is 81%. I have no flags, and I'm in minimum flow.
This is Houston, Roger, Neil.
No flags, no danger signals.
This is the preliminary checks he was required to make of all of his equipment for him to continue his walk here right after getting the contingency sample. Okay, I got the camera going at 1 frame a second. Okay. And I've got 80%, no flags. Good. Are you getting a TV picture now, Houston?
Neil, yes, we are getting a TV picture. Neil, this is Houston. We're getting a picture. You're not in at the present time. We can see the bag on the LEC being moved by Buzz, though. Here you come into our field of view.
Oh, Buzz, let me move that over the edge for you. Okay, ready for me to come out? Yeah, just stand by a second. I'll move this over the handrail.
It's sort of a wobbling fashion.
He moves around, though, with great stability. There's nothing to indicate he's suffering a loss of balance or a disorientation at all. He can...
Just walked over and got the bag and...
That's what you call a kangaroo hop.
No, he hasn't used the kangaroo hop yet.
Okay. All right, that's got it. Are you ready? All set. Okay, you saw what difficulties I was having. I'll try to watch your bliss from underneath here.
Now he's going to do for Aldrin what Aldrin did for him when Armstrong left the Eagle. He's going to give him guidance and direction, which way to move, where to put his feet. Make sure that his bliss pack clears the hatch door, the hatchway.
All right, the backup camera is position. Okay, your bliss looks like it's clear and okay. The toes are about to come over the sill. Okay, now drop your bliss down. There you go, you're clear. And laterally you're good. Got an inch clearance on top of your bliss. Okay, you need a little bit of arching of the back to come down. How far are my feet from the edge? Okay, you're right at the edge of the porch. Okay. Back in from... Small little foot movement. Porch. Arching of the back. Helmet comes up and clears the bulkhead without any trouble at all. Looks good.
.45 minutes PLSS time expended. Neil, this is Houston. Based on your camera transfer with the LEC, do you foresee any difficulties in SRC transfer over? Difficulties in SRC. Negative. That's the sample return containers, the rock boxes that Capcom...
I want to back up and partially close the hatch.
Neil Armstrong on the surface of the moon, Edwin Aldrin on the porch in just a matter of moments to start his descent of the lunar module ladder.
Making sure not to lock it on my way out. Particularly good thought. That's our home for the next couple hours. We want to take good care of it. Okay, I'm on the top step and I can look down over the RCU and landing gear pad. It's a very simple matter to hop down from one step to the next. Yes, I found it to be very comfortable, and walking is also very comfortable. You've got 3 more steps and then a long one.
That last one is the long one. The reason that is, they really expected, I think, the foot pads to crush in just a little bit more than they did.
Okay, I'm going to leave that 1 foot up there and both hands down to about the 4th rung up. There you go. Okay, now I think I'll do the same. A little more. About another inch. There, you got it? That's a good step. Yep. About a 3-footer. Beautiful view. Isn't that something? Magnificent sight out here.
Aldrin, the second man on the moon, followed Armstrong within 20 minutes.
Both PLSS is nominal on consumables.
Looks like the secondary strut have little thermal effects on it right here, Neil. Yeah, I noticed that. Seems to be the worst, although similar effects are on all around. Powder is very, very fine powder, isn't it? Isn't it fine? Right in this area, I don't think there's much of any but fine powder. Some clouds together, and it's hard to tell whether it's a clod or a rock. Notice how you can pick it out. Yeah, and it bounces, and then...
Both men are now about 4 or 5 feet apart, right out in front of the ladder where they come down off of the LEM porch. And they're kicking up the dust, so to speak, on the moon surface, checking to see what texture they have there. Now, astronaut Armstrong is hopping up and down.
Reaching down, fairly easy. I got my suit dirty at this stage. The mass of the backpack does have some effect in inertia. There's a slight tendency I can see now to backwards due to the soft, very soft texture. Oh, you're standing on a rock, big rock there now. Sure didn't. No, it didn't. Absolute no crater there at all from the engine. No. I wonder if that right under the engine is where probe might have hit. I'd like that. Yeah, I think that's a good representation of our sideward velocity of touchdown there. Folded the probe. I'll see that probe over on the minus Y strut. Open off and bent back up. That did, didn't it? The other two boats bent over.
The two pilots are now inspecting the limb, and the probe they're talking about are little probes that extend from the foot pads of the limb itself and touch the moon first on landing, and gives them a signal inside that they're only a foot away from touching down on the moon.
Can't say too much for the visit. Pretty dark. It looks like there's a surface of a flat rounded rock. And incidentally, these rocks, very powdery surface.
Say again, please, Buzz. You're cutting out.
And here's the please, Buzz. I say that the rocks are rather slippery.
Roger.
Very powdery surface. When it's on there, it's fill up all the very little fine porises. They'll tend to slide over it rather easily.
Neil Armstrong getting ready to move the TV camera now out to its panorama position.
Panorama position referred to by Mr. Riley.
Be about 60 feet away from the limb. Give a wide-angle view of their activities, which they will be doing during the next hour.
To lose my balance in one direction and recovery is quite natural and very easy. And moving arms around, Jack doesn't go off the surface. Not quite that light-footed. And I have the insulation off the Mesa now. The Mesa seems to be in good shape. You have to be careful that you're leaning in the direction you want to go, otherwise you slightly inebriate. In other words, you have to cross your foot over to stay underneath where your center of mass is. Hey, Neil, didn't I say we might see some purple rocks? Find the purple rocks? Yep. Very small, sparkly fragments are rock. They're like the sun in places. I would make a first guess at some sort of biotite. I'll leave that to the further analysis. But soil compacts underneath. Completely no. Up there, you don't sink down more than quarter of an inch.
Don't sink down more than a quarter of an inch, he says, as you walk across the lunar surface.
A little bit of a signal breakup there, and I believe that's in Aldrin's transmitter.
Biotite is a brown mica substance.
Okay, Houston, I'm going to change lenses on you.
Roger, Neil.
Right now there is a loss of picture.
Life support consumables still looking good.
Okay, Houston, tell me if get a new picture.
Neil, this is Houston. That's affirmative. We're getting a new picture. You can tell it's a longer focal length lens. And for your information, all LEM systems are go. Over. For your information, all LEM.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
We might mention that neither of the astronauts have walked more than 10 or 12 feet at the most away from the lunar module at this time. The television camera has a cable on it 100 feet long. They can maneuver out to 100 feet with the television camera.
A plaque to mark the landing. The small stainless steel plaque on the forward landing gear.
Bill is now unveiling the plaque that is...
Roger, we got you four-sided, but back to one side. Four-sided.
For those who haven't read the plaque, we'll read the plaque that's on the front landing gear of this LEM. There's two hemispheres, one showing each of the two hemispheres of Earth. Underneath it says, "Dear men from the planet Earth, first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. It came in peace for all mankind." It has the crew members' signatures and the signature of the President of the United States.
That will be there
Ready for the camera?
as a permanent artifact.
Ready for the camera? I'll get it. No, you're taking TV on now. Touch the LEC there. I'm afraid these soft materials are going to get dusty. Yeah, surface material, powdery. I don't know how good your lens is, but if you can touches above. Very much like a very finely powdered carbon, but pretty looking. You pull out some of my cable for me, Buzz?
The men have been on their portable life support systems for almost an hour.
Houston, how close are you able to get things in focus?
This is Houston. We can see Buzz's right hand. It's somewhat out of focus. I'd say we were focusing down to probably about 8 inches to a foot behind the position of his hand when he was pulling out the cable.
Okay, how's the temperature looking there? Temperature of the camera is showing cold. I'm a little cool, I think I'll take some. I'm on intermediate now, Houston, and I show 3.78. No flags, 74.
Houston, roger out.
And we'll probably need a little distant back location television camera. And Neil, look at the minus Y strut. The direction of travel there. Traveling from right to left. Right. So this one over here underneath the SN engine where the probe first hit. Minus my probe first hit. I got plenty of cable. You got plenty more. Okay, I think I got the end of it. Something interesting in the bottom of this little crater here. Maybe. Keep going. We got a lot more. Okay. Getting a little harder to pull out here.
The moon surface is just pocked with these little craters that are clearly visible as he walks across the surface carrying the television camera to its permanent resting site.
If you stand on the ladder facing forward, the minus Y strut is the landing gear to your left.
Say I am, Buzz. 40, 50 feet. Why don't you turn around and let them get a view from there and see what the field of view looks like. They're backing into the cable. Okay. Turn around to your right, be better. I don't want to go into the sun if I can avoid it. That's right, Jim. Just leave it. All right, let it sit like that and walk around it. Houston, how's that field of view going to be? Pick up the mesa.
Neil, this is Houston. The field of view is okay. We'd like you to aim it a little bit more to the right, over.
Okay. Okay, that's all the cable we have. All the way out. I'll start working on the shoulder.
A little bit too much to the right. Can you bring it back left about 4 or 5 degrees? Okay, that looks good, Neil.
Okay, that looks good, Neil. Okay, now, think I ought to be farther away or closer? Can't get too much further away. Let's try it like that for a while. I'll get a couple panoramas with it here.
Roger, you look okay as far as distance goes, Neil, and we'll line you up again when you finish the panorama. You're going too fast on the panorama sweep. You're going to have to stop for...
I haven't stopped. I haven't set it down yet. That's the first picture in the panorama. Right there.
Roger.
It's taken just about northeast. Tell me if you got a picture, Houston.
Well, we've got a beautiful picture, Neil.
Okay, I'm going to move it.
Okay, there's another good one. Okay, we got that one.
Okay, now this one's right down sun, straight west. And I want to know if you can see an angular rock in the foreground.
Roger, we have a large angular rock in the foreground, and looks like a much smaller rock a couple of inches to the left of it, over.
Right, and then on beyond it about 10 feet is an even larger rock that's very rounded. That rock is about, the closest one to you is about sticking out of the sand about 1 foot. It's about 1.5 feet long, and it's about 6 inches thick, but it's standing on edge.
Roger.
Okay, Neil, I've got the table out. Got a bag deployed.
We got this view, Neil.
Straight south.
Roger, and we see the shadow of the limb.
In the hill, Roger, the little hill just beyond the shadow of the limb is a pair of elongate craters. About probably the pair together is 40 feet long and 20 feet across, and they're probably 6 feet deep. We'll probably get some more work in there later.
Now they move the camera again, and the limb is visible once more, and Buzz Aldrin comes into view, standing by the limb strut.
Roger, and we see Buzz going about his work.
How's that for a final?
For a final orientation, we'd like it to come left about 5 degrees over. Back to the right about half as much.
Okay.
Okay, that looks good there, Neil.
Yeah, that looks good there. Okay.
One hour, 7 minutes time expended.
Okay, you can make a mark, Houston.
Roger, full in.
And incidentally, you can use the shadow that the staff makes to assist you in getting it perpendicular.
Buzz is erecting the solar wind experiment now.
Some of these small depressions get soft, and you tend to think, oh, maybe 2 or 3 inches. I can suggest exactly what the layer pictures showed when they pushed away a little bit. You can see force transmitted through the upper surface of the soil, and about 5 or 6 inches away, it breaks loose and moves as if it were caked on the surface, when in fact it really isn't. I noticed in the soft spots where we have footprints nearly an inch deep that the soil is very cohesive, and it will retain a slope of probably 70 degrees on the side of the footprint.
The men appear to float as they move rather than take steps, although you can see distinct footsteps.
I was going to mention that it looks something like crude animation or cartoon work, if you would, as they walk across. Probably seen early stages of cartoons, if you're that old.
Like King Kong.
Right, King Kong. That's a good description.
This is an adventure that far surpasses King Kong. The men now in the deep shadow of the limb between them and the rising sun.
You know, I'd use words like unbelievable and fantastic, but that doesn't describe it.
You know, and it would be trite to compare them to Lewis and Clark. Aldrin and Armstrong are doing things that are beyond any conception of past exploration.
All LEM systems still looking good.
Both men now still in the shadow of the limb.
July 20th, 1969, that would be 66 years, right after the first man flew. Man's on the moon.
Yes. And only, let's see, 57 years since man first flew coast to coast in an airplane. And it took him about 3 months to do it.
Dead end, come on. I'm going to get the camera. Take that part. Go out here with them. Head up to the rock here.
This LEM was put right down perfectly on a spot 240,000 miles from Earth. When man first flew from coast to coast 57 years ago, they had to use railroad tracks as their guidance and navigation system. And they'd send advanced crews out with a paintbrush and paint the railroad tracks to point them in the right direction.
Hey, I'll have to extend that one.
Columbia, this is Houston, ALS, over. Houston, ALS, over.
Neil Armstrong's been on the lunar surface now almost 45 minutes.
I don't have camera.
You know, it looks like a desert at about,
Very much so.
you know,
A
it's
desert
like
at
one of the things
twilight.
you compare it to. Pardon me?
A desert at twilight.
Yes.
It lives up to all its pre-landing billings, certainly an inhospitable place. Rocks scattered about with small craters.
Overhead, Collins and the command ship Columbia could hear, but not watch the unfolding drama.
Columbia, this is Houston, reading you loud and clear, over.
Yeah, this is Houston reading. Yeah, reading you loud and clear. How's it going?
Roger, the EVA is progressing beautifully. I believe they're setting up the flag now.
Great.
I guess you're about the only person around that doesn't have TV coverage of the scene.
That's all right. I don't mind a bit. How is the quality of the TV?
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. It really is.
Oh, geez, that's great. Is the lighting halfway decent?
Yes, indeed. They've got the flag up now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface.
Now, and you can see the stars and stripes on the lunar surface. Beautiful, just beautiful.
However, this in no wise makes a territorial claim by the United States, as they can't claim this in the name of Queen Victoria.
As a matter of fact, they have a flag for every nation with the exception of a couple, 3, namely Red China and Cuba.
It's see if you can pull that end off a little bit. Tighten that end up a little. It won't go up.
The two men still working with the flag now. They appeared to have the flag planted in the lunar soil and took it back out to try again. There seems to be a hard pan under the inch or two of lunar dust on top. And there are spots in this hardpan that presumably are difficult to penetrate. Perhaps that's the reason the flag staff was pulled out and then replanted. The flag now in the lunar soil, being held out in an unfurled position by a spring device.
A little wire that runs right up the top of it, Russ. Keeps it sticking out in the airless whirl. And you know, the more I look at this picture, the more it looks like to me a grade B Western to a certain extent on a desert, you know, where they would use night lighting.
The astronauts have stepped to one side and are gazing at the flag. I don't know whether they're saluting it or not, but their back is to us and we can't see, but they seem to be standing in an attentive position as though they were paying their respects to the flag.
I think we're anticipating a telephone call to the moon from the White House.
Neil, this is Houston radio. Check over.
Hi, Roger. Houston, loud and clear.
Roger out.
Loud and clear, Houston.
Roger, Buzz.
Now they are moving away from the flag.
They are walking around without any effort at all, but they seem to be enjoying it, to say the least.
Easier than in the simulator, Armstrong said.
It's almost as if they were roller skating without skates. Just an easy shuffle of those heavy lunar boots, and they are able to move right along without any difficulty.
I'd like to evaluate the various paces that a person can traveling on the lunar surface. I believe I'm out of your field of view. Is that right now, Houston?
That's affirmative, Buzz. You're in our field of view now.
You do have to be. All right, you do have to be rather careful to keep track of where your center of mass is. Sometimes it takes about 2 or 3 paces to make sure that you've got your feet underneath you. And about 2 or 3 or maybe 4 easy paces can bring you to a fairly smooth stop. Direction. Like a football player, you just have to put out to the side and cut a little bit. So-called kangaroo hop does work, but it seems your forward stability is not quite as good as it is in the more conventional one foot after another. As far as saying what a sustained pace might be, I think the one that I'm using now would get rather tiring after several hundred. But this may be a function of the suit as well as lack of gravity force here.
Tranquility Base. This is Houston. Could we get both of you on the camera for a minute, please?
Say again, Houston.
Roger, we'd like to get both of you in the field of view of the camera for a minute. Neil and Buzz, the President of the United States is in his office now and would like to say a few words to you. Over.
That would be an honor.
Go ahead, Mr. President. This is Houston out.
Hello, Neil and Buzz. I'm talking to you by telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you... For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure they too join with Americans in recognizing what an immense feat this is. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. And as you talk to us from the Sea of Tranquility, it inspires us to redouble our efforts to bring peace and tranquility to Earth. For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one. One in their pride in what you have done, and one in our prayers that you will return safely to Earth.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be here representing not only the United States, but men of peace of all nations, and with interest and a curiosity and with a vision for the future. Honor for us to be able to participate here today.
And thank you very much, and I look forward, all of us look forward to seeing you on the Hornet on Thursday.
Look forward to that very much, sir.
Columbia, this is Houston, over.
Loud and clear, Houston.
Roger, I've got a P-22 auto optics pad for you.
Roger, go ahead.
Roger, P-22, landmark ID, LEM, T1. 1102656. T2 1103206. 3 miles south. Time of closest approach 1103340. Shaft 353.855. Trunnion 46.495. Roll 0. Pitch 250. Yaw 0. Over.
Roger, thank you. Read back now required.
Roger, out.
Houston, it's very interesting to note that when I kick my foot at material with no atmosphere here and this gravity, they seem to leave, and most of them have about the same angle of departure and velocity. Where I stand, the large portion of them will impact at a certain distance out. There are several percentage, of course, that will impact different regions out, but it's highly dependent upon initial trajectory upwards determines where most of the majority of the particles come down, like the terrain.
Roger, Buzz, and break, Columbia. This is Houston. When you track out of high gain antenna limits, request Omni Delta. Omni Delta, over.
Come in. I've noticed several times in going from the sunlight into shadow that just as I go in, I catch an additional reflection off the LEM. Along with the reflection off my face onto the visor, makes visibility very poor just at the transition sunlight into the shadow. I essentially have so much glare coming onto my visor, I'm under shadow until helmet actually gets shadow, and then it takes a short while for my eyes to adapt to lighting conditions. Inside the shadow area, visibility, as we've said before, is not too great, but both visors up. We can certainly get what sort of footprints we have and the general condition of the soil. And after being out in the sunlight a while, it takes... watch it, Neil. Neil, you're on the cable. Okay. Yeah, lift up your right foot. Right foot. It's still, your toe is still hooked in it. That one? Yeah, it's still hooked in it. Come in. Okay, you're clear now. Thank you. Now let's move that over this way.
Neil Armstrong has the scoop for the bulk sample collection.
This could be as much as 50 pounds of material, rocks and soil or what have you. And when they seal them, they'll seal them in such a manner that they will bring them back under vacuum. This is important to the scientists who will study them once they get back here, is that they open it under pure vacuum.
The boot color of my boots have completely disappeared now into this small... Still don't know exactly what color to describe this other than grayish cocoa color. Seems to be covering most of the wider part of the boot. Color that had very fine particles.
Buzz, this is Houston. You're cutting out on the end of your transmission. Can you speak a little more closely into your microphone, over?
Into your microphone, over. Roger, I'll try that.
Beautiful.
Well, I had that one inside my mouth that time.
Sounded a little wet.
A little wet.
Neil's been on the surface an hour now. Buzz, not quite 20 minutes less than that.
In general, time spent in the shadow doesn't seem to have any thermal effects. We feel inside the suit. There is a difference, of course, in the coming radiation and helmet, so I think there's a tendency to feel a little cooler in the shadow than we feel out in the sun.
Columbia, this is Houston, over.
Columbia, this is Houston, over.
half expended on the PLSSs now.
Columbia, this is Houston, over.
This is the random sampling that they are taking now, and they will fill two boxes. Each box big enough to carry approximately 50 pounds of earth weight. How many pounds of moon soil will depend upon the density of the rocks they pick up. But this first sample will be uncatalogued, be a sort of a random sampling. Any rocks that look interesting to them, scientists, geologists around the world can take a rock the size of a tennis ball and analyze it and tell you almost more than you really care to know from their analysis of it.
Columbia, this is Houston, over.
Houston, Columbia, Delta.
Roger, you should have VHF AOS with the LEM right about now. VHF LOS will be at 40 minutes, 15 seconds, over.
Thank you.
Lunar Module flyers Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin now well beyond the halfway point in their walk on the moon.
Heart rates on both crewmen averaging between 90 and 100. Flight surgeon reports they're right on the predicted number of the BTU units expended in energy of work. And he thinks they're in great shape.
If I look around the area, the contrast in general is comes about completely by virtue of the shadows. Almost deep. Looking down sun, zero phase, very light colored gray, light gray colored, like the halo around my own shadow, around the shadow of my helmet. Then as I look off cross sun, the contrast becomes strongest in that the surrounding color is still fairly light. As you look down into the sun, a larger amount of shadowed areas looking toward us. The general color of the dramatic is darker than cross sun. Contrast is not as great. Surveying the dusty area that we've picked up, considerably darker in texture. Now, I've picked up once. I imagine that this has been out by certain impacts that that's a distinct surveyor. The same is true if I survey cross sun along the area that we're walking. General, is to the fact that there are footprints there. General terrain where I've been up out of this surface trail is generally of a darker contrast, having color.
We see one of the astronauts now very close to the LEM, collecting the lunar soil, walking in sort of a crouched position, not moving very far away from the LEM in collecting this sample. The farthest they have walked has been the 40 or 50 feet or so that they moved the TV camera. Armstrong took the TV camera out that far and set it up on a tripod so that it could aim back at the LEM and show the full lunar module and the activities of the two astronauts between the camera and the LEM. Helps the mission controllers evaluate their activities, helps them evaluate their ability to move around, and also provides a very good show for millions of Earthbound participants.
You can see Neil Armstrong bringing the scoop.
The ram I'll be taking is about 30 to 40 feet out to plus. But
Say again which strut, please, Buzz.
So it seems. Again which strut? The plus V strut.
Roger.
Right in this area, there are two craters. The one that's right in front of me now, as I look off in about the 11 o'clock position from spacecraft, about 30 to 35 feet across. And several rocks to boulders, 6, 8 inches across, different sizes.
Astronaut Aldrin describing some of the rocks and craters. Aldrin now not in the picture. Neil Armstrong at the base of the LEM.
Neil is filling the bulk sample bag attached to a scale. You can see him in the picture. Buzz is behind the LEM at the minus Z strut. That's the landing gear directly opposite the ladder.
Astronauts Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin now have been on their portable life support systems for better than an hour, 38 minutes, which means they have approximately an hour left to go. With still more experiments to do, they have a laser beam experiment, a seismic instrument to place on the moon's surface, those instruments to be left behind. They have already unfurled a foil to be used in gathering solar wind particles. That will be taken back with them when they fire the ascent engine and move back into lunar orbit tomorrow. Right now, the men are gathering rock samples. Armstrong is gathering rock samples.
Neil's been on the surface about an hour and 10 minutes now.
Astronaut Mike Collins, meanwhile, continues his orbit of the moon in the command ship. It will be Collins' job tomorrow to pick up these two men as they leave the lunar surface, go back into orbit for the docking, the rendezvous and docking, and the eventual return to Earth.
I'm now in the area of the minus Y strut. Taking some excellent photographs.
The Apollo 8 crew said the moon was gray, it had no color, and the 10 crew said it was gray with brownish gray areas.
So, ash cocoa.
In general,
ash cocoa.
Columbia, this is Houston, over.
Buzz is making his way around the LEM, photographing it from various angles, looking at its condition on all sides.
Armstrong earlier remarked about the stark beauty of the surface there. Described it, or he compared it to the high desert country of the United States.
With the bulk sample.
A lot of hard rock he described.
1 hour, 40 minutes time expended on the PLSSs now.
Three theories of how the moon came into being. One, naturally, that it formed itself out of particles traveling through space. Another is that it's part of the Earth that broke off at one time.
Salt sample is 15 field.
And a third theory is that the moon was another body in space traveling toward our solar system, was caught by the gravity of the Earth, and at one time it swung within 20,000 miles of our surface and caused huge tidal waves, and all here on Earth, and then eventually worked its way out. Because one of the laser mirror that they're going to set up should tell us somewhat whether or not this is true, if the moon is going away from us, if the solar system is expanding.
Columbia, this is Houston. Go ahead, over.
Roger, no marks on the limb that time. I did see a suspiciously small white object with coordinates burned.
Go ahead with the coordinates on the small white object.
EZ.37.6, but I'm not sure the instrument is right on the southwest rim of a crater. I think they would know it if they were in such a location. It looks like their limb would be pitched up at quite a degree. It's on the southwest wall of a smallish crater.
Roger, copy.
These seismic experiments and the laser experiment and the solar wind experiment are all passive. They have no moving parts. They have no power supply. They just sit there. So theoretically, they should last indefinitely. And following up your other subject on the formation of the moon and the three theories of it, Dr. Urey, University of California Nobel Prize winner, I think is one who subscribes to that splash theory, that the moon at one time came so close, as you said, the tidal waves were created and perhaps water splashed onto the moon and perhaps even contains remnants of protozoa and old life forms, which on this continent or this country or this planet, of course, would have long since been destroyed, but in the atmosphere or the lack of atmosphere around the moon, if such evidence exists, it would not have been destroyed, or at least that's what he hopes that these lunar experiments will show, that they perhaps can come up with some examples of life or water or moisture that at one time might have existed.
He's looking forward, incidentally, to getting a hold of some of these rocks.
Yes, indeed,
He's one of
he
the
is.
experimenters.
The lunar flyer is still moving around the limb now. Armstrong has confined most of his activities to the base of the limb, working at the modularized equipment storage assembly at the Mesa. He has completed the gathering of the rock samples, as he informed Mission Control just a few moments ago. In a few minutes, we can expect Armstrong to go ahead with some of the experiments that are to be deployed, some of the other experiments, the seismic, which still must be placed on the lunar surface, and the laser beam.
DOS deflector that's mounted on Quad 1 seems to be a good bit more wrinkled right now on Quad 4.
You're breaking up again, Buzz.
I say the jet deflector that mounted on quad 4 seems to be, the surface of it seems to be more wrinkled than the one that's on quad 1. Generally, underneath part of the LEM seems to have stood up quite well to the, look at some pictures in the aft part of the LEM that illuminate the thermal effects much better than we could get them up here in the front.
Roger out.
Want to get some particular photographs of the bulk sample area, Neil?
Okay.
He just called Armstrong Neil, which calls attention to a point that was brought up earlier. Since they call the two spaceships by different names, Eagle, Columbia, it was asked of them, how are they going to refer to each other when they're separated on the moon surface like this? And I think they said, well, we'll call each other by our names, Neil and Bart.
No flags. Adequate. Light warming fingers. Roger, and Neil has 66% O2, no flags, minimum cooling, and the suit pressure is 382.
Houston, roger out.
66% there on the PLSS, and they have been out, or been on them an hour and 46 minutes. So they're not using up the oxygen too fast.
Neil has finished collecting and packing the bulk sample.
Buzz, this is Houston. Have you removed the close-up camera from the Mesa yet? Over.
The Mesa referred to as the modularized equipment storage assembly, where the experiments and equipment are kept.
Get a panorama there. Okay.
Both men now at the base of the LEM, moving about with apparently no difficulty at all. They seem to enjoy the ease with which they can move around on the lunar surface.
Houston, how does our timeline appear to be going?
Roger, it looks like you're about a half hour slow on it. We're working on consumables, over.
All right.
Both men still moving about in the vicinity of the lunar module as it rests in the southwestern corner of the Sea of Tranquility. A moment ago, Buzz Aldrin asked about the reservoir in his portable life support system and was informed that everything is looking good. Here's mission control.
Your consumables are in good shape at this time. The 30-minute reference was with respect to the nominal timeline, over.
Roger, I understand that.
Portable life support system utilizes body heat to convert the ice and the sublimator ice, to convert that directly into its gaseous state, H2O, And the O part, the oxygen, is what they breathe and what keeps them alive.
The men have been on this system now for almost an hour and 50 minutes, which means they have about 50 or so minutes to go. It appears to me they still have a lot to do before they wrap up this walk on the surface of the moon. No communication now between mission control and the two flyers.
It's just conceivable that when they take off, we might get just the briefest glimpse of the flame coming down from the ascent engine before it severs the power cables to that television camera, because the TV camera will be left on the moon in this position.
Neil's been on the surface now slightly over an hour and 20 minutes.
Don't note any abnormalities in the limb. Quads seem to be in good shape. The primary and secondary struts are in good shape. Antennas are all in place. There's no evidence of problem underneath the limb due to either the engine exhaust or drainage of any kind.
Roger out.
It's very surprising, very surprising lack of penetration of all four of the foot pads. I'd say if we were to try and determine just how far below the surface they would have penetrated, you'd measure in 2 or 3 inches, wouldn't you say, Neil? At the most, yeah. That fly strut there is probably even less than that. I get a picture of the bus-wide strut taken from near the descent stage, and I think we'll be able to see a little bit better what the ripple effects are. Seem to be quite minimal.
A gentle landing by Eagle.
They make periodic checks of the limb. They don't make just one check. They make frequent examinations of those limb struts just to make sure that they're not sinking slowly, and they're not.
This one picture taken in the right rear of the spacecraft, looking at the skirt of the descent stage. So a slight darkening of the surface color, a rather minimal amount of radiating or etching away or erosion of the surface. And now on descent, both of us remarked that we could see a large amount of very fine dust particles moving out. It was reported beforehand that we would probably see an outgassing from the surface after actual engine shutdown, but I recall I was unable to verify that.
This description of the lunar module from astronaut Edwin Aldrin. The men will be on the moon for about 22 hours, according to the flight plan, but they will be walking about on the surface for just a little over, well, actually less than 2 hours and a half.
Presumably, the rest period that they skipped in order to make this early EVA, presumably, I say, because we've certainly heard no confirmation or mention of the subject, will be added to the 4-hour rest period that is scheduled following EVA.
Just too big an angle, Neil. Yep. I think you're right.
Both men now taking a close look at the lunar module, both out of camera range, off to the left of the picture. Again, the lunar landscape in a general shadow. The sun barely over the horizon, over the lunar horizon. A portion of the LEM brilliantly lighted, but most of it in shadow.
Commander Armstrong is now photographing all parts of the LEM, and he has this close-up camera we started talking about a while ago that he took off of the Mesa. And it's a stereo camera that he can use, and he'll take pictures of the exact impression.
Minus Z set now. Stereo pair we're taking to the head will take very little force of impact that we actually had.
I get the impression these men are very much impressed by the firmness of the terrain beneath the LEM and beneath the area in which they're walking.
And Neil, if you take the camera, okay, to work on the SEQ bay. Okay.
Columbia, Columbia, this is Houston.
I noticed that...
Columbia, this is Houston. Go ahead, Bud.
Okay. Try to get some close-up pictures of that front. I was saying that Houston stop and take a photograph of something and then want to start moving again sideways. Quite a tendency to start doing it with just gradual sideways hops because you start getting momentum.
Roger.
Can you see us underneath the LEM over at the SEQ bay, Houston?
Yes, indeed, Buzz. We can see your feet sticking out underneath the structure of the LEM descent stage.
Okay, I'm just on the other side of the...
now we can see you through the structure of the minus Z secondary strut.
The SEQ bay contains the scientific experiments to be left on the surface of the moon. The laser, reflector.
They're open, and it looks like they're going to stay up without any problem.
Columbia, Columbia, this is Houston. We're about to lose you on the Omnis. Request high gain antenna. React mode. Pitch 20. Yaw 135. Over.
Gonna pick an area, Neil.
Make that yaw 175. Columbia, yaw 175 on the high gain.
Columbia's locked up on the high gain, Houston.
Roger out.
Two men looking over their lunar module now, moving about in clear picture range. As they move around to the sunny side of the LEM,
I thought you were going to say street.
the sun, they got the whole boulevard here, I'll tell you. No traffic jam where they are.
The surgeon says everything looks fine.
The men have been on their portable life support systems now for almost 2 hours. Dr. Charles Berry, flight surgeon, reported a few moments ago that everything looks good. So Armstrong and Aldrin are making the most of it and are continuing their activities outside the lunar module, walking about.
An hour and a half of lunar surface time for Neil Armstrong.
At this time, astronaut Aldrin has opened the equipment bay door, and he's removing the two scientific experiments we've been talking about that will be left behind on the moon. One checks and reports to Earth the lunar seismic activity. The other experiment provides a reflector target for laser beams measuring precise Earth-Moon distance.
Houston, the passive seismometer has been deployed manually.
Roger.
They've been on the portable life support systems for 2 hours now.
Aldrin will carry out these experiments to their location, which will be about 70 feet from the LEM, where they'll begin setting them up. The first one he'll set up will be the passive seismic experiment.
And the manual deployment of the LR cubed little spring that's at the end of the string pulled off of the pit fin. Now, however, I was able to reach up and get hold of the pit fin and pull it loose. So it'll be deployed manually also.
Roger.
And the panorama is complete, and at the LEM 730 position at about 60 feet.
That's Neil Armstrong to the left of the screen. By that.
Doors are closed and locked.
Roger.
Hey, have you got us a good area picked out? Well, I think right out on that rise out there is probably as good as any. Right over here. But probably stay on the high ground there and much at the edge of that crater is rather
that's real soft there, isn't it?
A couple of close-ups on these quite rounded, large boulders.
Buzz Aldrin coming into view on the right, carrying the two experiments.
About 40 feet out. I'd say out to the end of that next... well, it's going to be a little difficult to find a good level spot here. Top of that next little ridge there, wouldn't that be a pretty good place? Okay, how about I put the LR cube right about here? All right. And, I'm going to have to get on the other side of this rock here. I would go right around that crater to the left there. Isn't that a level spot there? I think this right here is just as level. Okay.
And they will be out of the camera's field of view while setting up these experiments.
The boulders look like basalt, and they have probably 2% white minerals in them, white crystals. And the thing that I reported as vesicular before, I don't believe I believe that anymore. I think it's small craters they look like little impact craters where BB shot has hit the surface.
Be little meteorites, I suppose.
Well, he's talking about basalt, not gold and diamonds, so we can get all the basalt we need around here.
Well, they called Alaska Seward's Folly at one time, too. It was sometime later that it proved its mineral wealth. The astronauts will compensate for the weight of the rocks that they're collecting. Be more than 100 pounds. They'll compensate for the weight of those rocks in their command module on their return trip home by leaving behind quite an array of equipment. They'll leave the TV equipment, they'll leave the camera, the tripod, they'll leave all of the scientific experiments that they're setting up. Some of the lower stage, the descent stage of the Eagle will also be left behind. They'll leave their 2 portable life support systems and part of their garments, too.
Both men now out of camera range as they set up the seismic and laser beam experiments. It's a passive picture we're looking at.
Houston, I have the seismic experiment flipped over now, and I'm aligning it with the sun. I'm having a little bit of difficulty getting the beep still in the center. Wants to move around and around on the outside. Doesn't find any spot, any hole.
You're cutting out again, Buzz.
Did I say I'm not having too much success in leveling the PSE experiment?
Lunar Module flyers Neil Armstrong and Edwin Aldrin still out of camera range as they move about on the lunar surface setting up experiments that hopefully will tell men for years to come something about the formation of the universe and the nature of the heavenly bodies that surround this Earth of ours. Here's one of the flyers now talking to Houston's mission control. Let's listen.
The bubbles level, and the alignment appears to be good.
Neil, this is Houston. Roger, out.
Hey, you want to take a look at this BB, see what you make out of it? I found it pretty hard to get perfectly level, too. That BB likes the outside. It won't go on the inside. That little cup is convex now instead of concave. I think you're right. I believe it is. Houston, I don't think there's any hope of using this leveling device to come up with an accurate level. It looks to me as though the cup here that the BB is in is now convex instead of concave, over.
Roger, 11. Press on. If you think it looks level by eyeball, go ahead.
Okay.
The bubble they're discussing is on a leveling device on the passive seismometer.
One going, huh? There you go. Good work. Good show. Hey, whoa, stop. Back up. Wait. Houston, as I was facing the PSC, the right-hand solar array deployed automatically. The left hand, I had to manually spinning bar at the far end. And all parts of the solar array are clear of the ground now.
So Buzz, this is Houston. Understand you did successfully deploy both solar arrays, over.
Roger, that's affirmative. And there isn't any way of telling whether that's lined up. Not getting in the way. Maybe I can get down here. Now that appears to be pointing.
Astronaut Aldrin is still deploying the solar panels on the seismic experiment, which means it'll only operate while there's sunlight on that part. The seismic stations to go up in the future will have what they call a snap generator. That's a nuclear generator to power them. It'll go day and night.